Custodes aren't that broken. I heard they nearly lost the Imperial Phase. Yeah, the point is nearly, and they still didn't lose. Custodes are the boogeyman of Warhammer 40k right now. They are the scariest, nastiest, meanest sons of bitches on town these days. And there's only one reason why. It's because they're undercosted and their stratagems are too good. I have evidence to back this up, but it's not my evidence. I have to give credit where credit is due. And as much as I shit on Warhammer competitive subreddit, sometimes it has some excellent info, which is very valid. They have articles that come out every Monday called Meta Monday. And this is kind of like a roundup of like 40k results or 40k event results from the previous weekend. They've gone over 11 different events from the grand tournaments or like large events from around the world, such as Australia, Canada, Finland, UK, and the US as well. When the Custodes Codex first came out, Reddit, though this subreddit in particular, was like really like shitting on the Custodes Codex. They were like, this is a bad book. I'm selling this army, man. It sucks hard. It's really bad. They don't have a 3+N run. That's it. That's the whole take. But then you look at the data that JCM, thank you, man, really appreciate it, has put together. They've won, when I made my thumbnail that said they've won 40% of all GTs, they'd won 4 out of 10. They've now updated it to be 4 out of 11, so it's not quite 40% win rate of tournaments, but they've won 4 out of 11 GTs. They've got the data, so they've basically taken all of these GTs, taken the amount of players, the amount of wins and the games, and then they've got a win rate and how many people are in like the top 5, or like percentage of the top 5, right? Adeptus Custodes, 59 players, 189 games, 288 wins. 189 wins, 288 games. 66% win rate is like crazy high. For an example, Drakari were getting like a 62% win rate when they first came out, and that was like unheard of at the time. It was like crazy high, for example. But in the comment section, someone's worked it out that if you take Custodes, like take out mirror matches, so this is Custodes into every other army but themselves, they actually have closer to a 71 or 72% win rate, which is crazy. A 72% win rate. Same can be said, it's not all Custodes, it's also Tau. Tau here, 42 players, 133 wins out of 203 and a 66% win rate. But also you can take out their mirror matches and it gets closer to 70%. So you have a 72% or 71% win rate with Custodes and a 70% with Tau taking out mirror matches. The mirror matches is what's pulling them back because so many people are playing these armies and Tau have been around for so long that people have them already, and Custodes are such a low model count that they're so easy to just kind of like jump on if you don't have them already. And the build is very similar to the old 8th edition build when they were doing well. And the more recent, like early 9th edition build is like kind of like spamming dreadnoughts, taking all the Forge World dreadnoughts and rolling with it. Whereas the 9th edition build is ever so slightly different and it's relying on bikes, which is very similar to like when Custodes first came out. The bikes were really good. People were running the bikes and then guardsmen. Like the old Loyal 32 back in the day, remember those? So that was a CP farm, and then you had the bikes doing all the work, draining all the CP. But now they are still relying on the strength of the bikes. What's interesting with the takeaway is that the most interesting takeaway for me is how Custodes and Tau have pushed every other top faction to around a 50% win rate. This is the first time in any of my data we've seen such a drastic shift in the field. No other faction with a significant player base this weekend got above a 52% win rate, which is crazy. So you got Admech just scraping 51% of still a very strong army. Eldar with a 50% win rate, which is really interesting, but obviously we can't really think about them too much because they're about to get a new codex. So whatever they get, it doesn't matter. Drakari a 50% win rate, which is the lowest they've been for a long time. GSC scraping 49. Grey Knights at 47, which is obviously much lower than they were before. Necron's taking a huge buff at 52%. Now, this is interesting. I think this must be because like a lot of the other factions have got a bit of a nerve with the fact that they can't soup anymore, and Necrons didn't really soup much anyway. So this is like really, really high for them. But then you got Tyranids. This is like Crusher Stampede getting knocked back a little bit. And then every other faction just getting taken down. Just down all the way. So I thought those results were really, really interesting. I brought up one list because we obviously had the 40k London Open this weekend, which was won by Manny. Once again, Manny smashing it with any army that's good that month. Most like Custodes armies are looking very similar at the minute. This is kind of like what they're looking like. Now this is Manny's list in particular, but I thought I'd like put like a visualization just so you can kind of see like just how low model count it is. The Inquisitor is like one that's not seen very often, but this gives like a little bit of psychic support that Custodes don't have whatsoever. And it's also very cheap to throw in. Inquisitor opens up the Psychic Secondaries. This is true. It also denies you Psychic Secondaries against Grey Knights, I guess, but there you go. But also helps protect against the Tau Dominator Relic. Fair enough. You've got Trajan Valoris. Now, he had a points drop before the book came out. So, or like a week after the book came out. Because obviously he had the delayed Custodes Codex. And then like a week later, you had the chapter approved come out and dropped his points. Trajan's like a very, very good beat stick. Generates command points back in for you. And he's just super cheap with a bunch of attacks. You've got the Shield Captain. The Shield Captain with like Captain Command traits, take all the relics. He's really good. I think Manny took one of the Waller traits where basically after you fought, for every destroyed model, you make a number of extra attacks to a maximum of 4, which just makes him hit so much harder. And he's obviously got the Misericordia now as well for free. Then in the troops, you've got 2 units of Guardian Spears and 1 unit of Prosecutor. So this is like a little bit of anti-psychic denial, but it's also a very cheap troop unit. And you got 2 units of Guardian Spears, just 2 units of 3, just standard. Again, they're just good. They're 2 up, 4 up. They get 4 attacks each, plus a Misericordia. You have a bunch of stratagems that Custodes can use, which we'll go over in a minute. Some of like the more common ones. This is where the spam comes in. You've got 3 Achilles Dreadnoughts, super cheap. One of them being upgraded to Eternal Penitent to give it like +1 attack and reroll charges. But they've got consistent shooting. They've got the Lastrum Bolters. They've got the Las Cannon thingy. And then it's a Dreadnought, so it's -1 damage. It's really good in combat. And they're just like super strong and super efficient. And then what you've got is the 3 units of 3 bikes, which is like pretty much in every list. There's no less than 2 units of bikes in each list that's won this weekend. They are also really good. They get +1 to wound on the turn they charge. They got 4 attacks each plus a Misericordia. They're also all equipped with salvo launchers. Now, salvo launchers weren't really used in the last edition, but now they're like really, really strong. 1 shot, it's a missile launcher, but it's strength 8, -4, and D3 +3 damage. Okay, this is like basically taking Darkland spam that Drukhari were like really, really good for. You know, they're like Dark Lancers were like everyone's bane of existence for any vehicles. Now you take like 9 of them because they're the same profile, plus the 3, so you got like 12 Dark Lance equivalents on a platform that's super good in combat and super resilient, which is just it's just bonkers. It's just bonkers how efficient they are. And they're only like, the bikes are only just over like 200 odd points. The Dreadnoughts are less than 200. Let's have a look at like the list directly so we can have a look at relics and Waller traits. There we go. Its shield host is Emperor's Chosen. So Emperor's Chosen gives you a reroll, a hit or a wound roll every time a unit fights, which makes your salvo launchers again. So then you got the Shield Captain, Auric Exemplar. He's got Superior Creation for the 5+ Fear Pain. He's got Castellan's Mark. I think that's the redeploy relic, if I remember correctly. He's got Misericordia, and he's taking Tip of the Spear for on the turn he charges, rerolling a hit and looming on the 1. And then Auric Exemplar, I believe, is the one where you basically get extra attacks if you kill stuff. Yeah, 6 attacks in combat. If he kills any models, he can make more attacks. That captain, 175 points, costs you 2 CP. However, it is horrific. It is horrifically good. You got Charge of Valoris again. He gives you a command point, and he's like really, really good, as we already mentioned. Gives you CP back. He's really good in combat. Fight twice. You know, super strong. Again, I think these are just objective grabbers. I haven't seen any of his games, so I'm not really sure how he's playing these. But I imagine these are really good for anti-psychic if you are playing against psychic like Grey Knights. But then your Custody Guard are just really good objective grabbers. Their objectives secured. They count as 6 models. And whilst they're a unit of 3, they can also use really, really cheap stratagems because they're less than a unit of 3. So then Contemptor Achilles, it's pronounced Achilles. Spear Lad, Spear Boy, Keely Dreadnought, this one. You know what, chat? Here we go. You've asked for this. It's not a real word. Does everyone know that? How to pronounce? Achilles. Achilles. I was saying it right.
Achilles.
Okay, it's an Achilles. So he's got Lashron Bolters on all of them, all with the Twin Adrathic Destructor, which is the spear. But then one of them's got Eternal Penitent for the reroll charges and extra attack. So the Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought. Too easy. The Contemptor Achilles Dreadnought. 3 of those, and then 3 servo launchers. Again, 3 salvo launchers, 3 Misericordias, and 3 Inceptor launchers. These are only 255 points. But what's important with, like, these units are, like, super duper effective, right? They're super tough. They've all got 2-up save. They've all got a 4+ in run. They're pretty much immune to morale, or morale shenanigans, because they're a leadership 11 base. What's important with Custodes is not only are they super efficient because they are really cheap, they're really tough, they all have an in-run, they all have a really good save. They have a bunch of stratagems which are super cheap and are just so efficient. Just so efficient. So, for example, the 2 that are, like, used a lot and probably annoy people the most are something that not many other armies have access to. Well, one of them, not many other armies have access to. One stratagem in particular, everyone has access to. That's the one known as transhuman, or it's like genetic alchemy or something like that. So this one is 1 CP on a unit of 3 or less, and it basically, you can't win them on better than a 4+. So if you can't, if you're like strength 1000 and their toughness 5, you can't win them on a 2. You have to win them on a 4. That's like one that's like really good. But the annoying one, which is a lot of like people like really don't like playing against, and it is really frustrating. The most obnoxious one, thank you, Josh. The most obnoxious one is turn off rerolls. Now, use this stratagem in any phase when an Adeptus Custodes unit from your army is chosen as the target of an attack. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, your opponent cannot reroll the hit, wound, or damage roll for that attack. If it's a unit of 4 or fewer, it's 1 CP. If it's higher than 4, it's 2 CP. 2 CP is a really cheap stratagem for this ability, but it is 1 CP. It is 1 CP for a unit of 4 or less. And as I said, if you look at this army, there's no units of 4 or less. That's really interesting. That's really interesting, one. The survivability of Custodes is very good because they are so tough. They are naturally tough. 2+ save, 4+ in run. And then you got the bikes, which are T6 with 5 wounds. Now, they can just turn off the rerolls, so your consistency is significantly dropped if you're relying on stuff like Chapter Master, natural rerolls such as their own Emperor's Chosen, or similar abilities like Master Artisan or equivalent, or rerolling a hit, or rerolling a wound, for example. They're gone. And command point rerolls completely gone as well. Easy access and 0+ saves as well between the Vexilis Praetor and Light Cover. That is another tactic that you can take as well. If you want to take the Presidium Shields or the Storm Shields now, which give you +1 save, so they have a 1+ armor save, and take the banner that gives out light cover, and take the other banner that makes a -1 to hit. You have now a 0-up save, -1 to hit. Dude. Who's basically ignores Rend 2. Rend 3 is the only one that gets through. Said they're like super like resilient. They're super resilient. Because they've got these extra stratagems that make them even more resilient. Now, they are also super aggressive, and they're really good in combat. They're really good in combat. As we've mentioned, the Achilles Dreadnought gets 5 attacks, 6 with the Eternal Penitent. If he's attacking with the Dread Spear, he's strength 14, -3, and D3 +3 damage with 6 attacks hitting on 2s. Now, normal Custodes, again, 4 attacks, like let's say this spear, they're like strength 6, -3, 2 damage, which is 2 damage is not great, but it's also everyone has 2 damage. The Lancers on the bikes get +1 to wound. And they have, like, multiple stratagems that make them very good in combat. One is from the core rulebook. It's an interrupt stratagem. If you don't kill a unit of Custodes, or you've charged multiple units of Custodes, you can interrupt with one of the Custodes units and they will just kill something, because they are just that good. But they also have Indomitable Guardians. So use this stratagem in the fight phase after an enemy unit has fought. Select one Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that is in range of an objective marker it can fight next. So not only can they interrupt for 2 CP, if they're on an objective, they can interrupt again for 1 CP. 1 CP to interrupt again. So they can interrupt twice a turn, or they can just interrupt really cheaply, which is like horrific. They also have stuff like Slayer of Nightmares. So those bikes, which are getting +1 to wound, you can give them +1 to wound again if you have any negative for wound, or if you're going in with a Dreadnought that's T7 into an Imperial Knight that's toughness 8, right? You can just spend 1 CP to give it +1 to wound with its spear. That's strength 14, -3, and D3 +3 damage. You can make them wound a knight on 2s. Now, you're not going to get this against, like, infantry, but you wouldn't on 3s anyway. But you're going to get this against every big thing that's good at killing Custodes. You're going to get +1 to wound against it. She's just 1 CP is just so... And that's like... And that's the thing with Custodes. The problem with them is that they are super efficient for their cost, for their points value. And those points values came down a week after the book came out because the book was delayed. So with all that data that they magicked up from nowhere, they were like, actually, Custodes are too expensive. We need to drop their points, such as Charging Valois, and giving out Misericordias for free across the army. So giving everyone in the Codex, not Forge World, but every unit in the Codex, just give them +1 attack because they only get this like random power sword, which is like horrific. Okay. But they are not only so efficient by their data sheet, they have all of these stratagems that when, as an opponent, you can buff your stuff to make it easier to kill Custodes, they can turn it off or make it harder to do. And then when they hit you back, if they feel like they're not going to be quite efficient enough, they can buff it again or interrupt multiple times, which is just damn. Now, how do we fix... Because that's the questions everyone's asking. How do we fix Custodes? Everyone's just like, you know, Custodes broken, man. They're too good. And I'm just like, bruh, Custodes broken, man. And they are pretty broken. They're I wouldn't say their codex is broken. I would say that they are far too efficient. Broken would imply that the rules don't work properly. But they are far too efficient. They trade too well. And the same problem with Tau as well. They're far too efficient. But Custodes is just like, you could say, just limit bikes to 1 unit. Which is probably what a lot of people who have played against the new Custodes would like to do. They'd be like, just ban every unit and just let them take 1 of the good one. Which is obviously just terrible. Just terrible. I don't think that's the best fix. I honestly don't. I think the fix is just to make the efficient units a little bit more expensive. Maybe make the bikes 10 points per model more. We should bump the units currently with the salvo launchers to 285 points. In this list of manis, if we bumped it, that'd be a 90-point bump. That's like, you know, like 5% increase, which means you'd have to lose the Inquisitor, which means you'd have to run a patrol, lose the prosecutors and something else. You'd have to take, maybe drop 1 of the dreadnoughts or even drop a whole unit of bikes. But if you just up the bikes by 20 to 30 points, and again, the chat suggested just upping the salvo launches, so I don't think the Hurricane Bolters are as oppressive. Again, when you've got 9 Dark Lance equivalents on something that's got a 4+ invuln and 5 wounds at T6 that flies and kills you, then maybe that's the problem. The other way to fix it, as a lot of people are saying in chat, and Liam is shouting in chat, make the next codex even stronger so everyone jumps to that one. I mean, that is one way. Maybe Eldar and Harlequins in the next book, and maybe even Ynnari will be the most broken faction in the game. But they've still got to get through Tau, which is another video. That's a whole other video. We can talk about Tau next time. Down, but bring the cost of the Dark Lance up. Well, currently 5 points to upgrade a few measly bolter shots to a Dark Lance is not much of a choice. Exactly, the salvo launcher is so efficient and so good, and it's only 5 points extra. Maybe make the salvo launchers 10 points each, 10-point increase, and increase the cost of the bikes, or even make the salvo launchers like 15 points extra, so they all go up 10. As a comparison, I haven't done a visual comparison, but as another comparison for another list, this is Team Battle Brothers 40k Major. We've got another Custodes winning list. This is won the event. Another Empress Chosen. We've got a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike with Auric Exemplar, Superior Creation, Castellan's Mark, salvo launcher, and then tip of the spear. Exactly the same loadout, but taking a salvo launcher instead. Trajan again. This time taking Sagittarian Guard. Now, Sagittarian Guard are the bolter Custodes. These are really efficient and they're good backline heavy bolter shooting. These are a little bit more expensive, but probably more efficient long range compared to like close range. But even with the Misericordias, they're still not bad in combat. 5 attacks at strength 5, -2 and 1 damage. This time taking Wardens to protect probably the Shield Captain turn 1 because the Wardens have Bodyguard. But then 2 units of Virtus Praetors with salvo launchers once again. So you're only taking 6 this time rather than 9. They're taking triple Caladius Grav Tank with the heavy blaze cannon, which I thought was really interesting. This is like 8th edition. Wrong gun, but 8th edition. This is like a really interesting list. This one's just relying on like backline shooting. Now I'm not sure what terrain type they're using, because like in the UK, I don't think this would fly for the type of terrain we run in like most events, but this relies on a lot of backline shooting with the bikes being more aggressive. It was player place. So if it's player place terrain, as Suave Lion saying, I don't know, I can't confirm, but that's what chat is saying, then you can kind of play around like the line of sight. You can put a big building down in the middle to stop people putting buildings near it, and you can create nice fire lanes. That's my list. Hi, Michael Walsh. Thanks for tuning in. It was playing cagey and drawing tight firing lanes. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the extra insight. Because, like, we don't really see grav tanks in the UK meta. We don't really see grav tanks, but we also don't use player place terrain, which is kind of like been set up by Frontline Gaming. They kind of like have, this is really good because you can kind of play a meta game of setting up the terrain in your own way. Being able to take the grav tanks, or being able to play the player place terrain, that was hard to say, play the player place terrain matchups where you can have your own meta game to control how the board's going to look before you even get to the table. You know how you can set up the terrain differently compared to other tournaments where you might have like set terrain, which this type of list might not work. Interesting. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Would really appreciate it. But it's really interesting. Custodes are just like and a good one to look at because they've gone from 0 to hero very quickly. But yeah, so let me know down in the comments below. It'd be really good to like get your feedback on what you think about Custodes, and let me know just in general. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.